This week's marketing gem. This week we're looking at how a product or a company, can add value to a product or service. It's one of the big buzzwords that's around at the moment, with lots of people talking about adding value, value added, etc., 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 and it's used in all sorts of things. One of the aims of companies to provide added value services is to develop relationships with their customers, and what that will lead, and in the hope that that will lead to repeat business. There are lots of big examples where big companies have done it, such as Air Miles, Avios, whatever they're called now, bonus points, nectar points, club car points, and so on and so forth. All of which give you perceived added benefits for using this company and keep using them time and time again. So be it free flights, free groceries, free petrol, so on and so forth. But not all added services or directly produce additional revenue for the company. Some do, some don't. So some might offer warranties or supply additional hardware, for example, if it's a hardware supplier, or they might offer extra services such as training service or free delivery against a set time for, say, something like a furniture company, which traditionally might not be considered to offer any form of added value. Other companies, such as kitchen design companies, might say, well, if you buy the units from us, we'll deliver them free for you, and we'll either design it or consult with you on the design of your kitchen, and so on and so forth. As usual in today's show, I'm joined by a usual panel of experts. But before I do, I'd like to remind you that if you do have anything to say, then please get in touch with us at The Marketing Gem. That's at The Marketing Gem via Twitter. And Catherine, you can start us off.
Yes, hi, I'm Catherine. I've been involved in graphics and print for the last 20 plus years, having worked in excuse me, a company office situation. I've now been working for myself for the last 8 years. So this particular topic is something I'm very interested in, because there are different ways of adding value to what you do. As you mentioned, Diane, you know, if you're a furniture company, you can add on delivery, you can add on various services in that respect. If you're a larger company, you can add different levels of customer service. You can have a dedicated accounts client for top accounts and add that bit of extra rapport with top clients. You can there's various ways you can do it. On a level where I'm looking at in the business that I run as a sole trader, you have to look at things differently. So I look at it in terms of building that rapport with people over time, spending time with people, which is incredibly important. Producing a set of proofs for someone without necessarily securing a job, but you're offering something to draw them in and to increase that level of customer service. So I'm going to be interested to discuss various different ways of offering a little bit of added value to the sorts of businesses that we're looking at, small, medium-sized businesses.
Okay, Jonathan.
Hi there. Right, as my lower third isn't appearing, if anyone wants to tweet me, my lower third should read at MMAJ5DARBY. Might as well get in that one in early. My background is more sort of corporate, blue chip advertising, media, marketing. And yes, this is going to be an interesting conversation because added value isn't always what you expect it to be. So we'll get to that a little bit later.
Okay, and finally, the final member of our panel today is Kevin Lynch.
Hi Diane, thanks for having me on the show. My background, digital media, content creation, and various sort of systems. Value is a very interesting thing. Where the value isn't always where people think it is.
Yep, okay, so Catherine, you started off by talking about a little bit of some of the bits that you offer. Perhaps since you run a small company that's very much kind of a hybrid between a product and a service, and the service is graphic design, That's the professional side of it, but the product at the end of it is something that's printed. Perhaps you could explain how some of the offers that you already make and do, just to give some examples.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, for instance, very first of all, if it's a brand new client, we'll either have a telephone conversation, but more often we'll either have a lunch or a brunch or have a business meeting of some sort. Obviously, that's on me, or they will come round to me. We'll actually spend some time. That's not chargeable time. That's conversation time where you're actually getting to know someone. And if you get to know more about what it is that they're doing, what they're offering in terms of their product and service, then you're gathering that information, you're gathering that knowledge. Particularly if you've looked up their website or whatever beforehand, you're adding to that conversation then, and that's a great starting point then to offer the customer your full attention. And the fact that you've done a bit of research about them makes them feel valued to start with. The job might come to nothing, but at least you've made that connection. You've had a rapport. From there, hopefully, you will then build to actually getting a job on board, doing a set of proofs. Obviously, I would normally do a quote or whatever. Quote includes proofs and final print product or whatever that might be. Very often, someone will come back to me afterwards and say, that was great. I really just need a logo for my website as well. Can you just let me have that? So that's another little extra that gets added on. They might say, oh, I've got someone who's going to do some T-shirts for me. Would you mind just having a word with them about that? So you've got another little collaboration thing going on there. It's not necessarily chargeable stuff, but you're adding something to the relationship that you've got with that customer. So there's other ways of adding value to the service that you're providing for someone and adding to the experience of that customer relationship. That helps it to be a repeat customer, and it also helps your reputation to spread a bit further because they're going to tell somebody else, well, go and see CB Graphics because they're really friendly there, and I needed this, and this, and it was all very easy to get through. So yeah, there's ways of doing it that aren't necessarily obvious.
Okay, so Jonathan, I mean, that's quite an important point, isn't it? Ultimately, what you're trying to do when you're adding value is to build customer loyalty, to enhance the service that you offer so that you're seen in a favourable light.
Yes, you have to be very careful that what you're actually doing in terms of adding value, so to speak, is it relevant to the overall package that you offer, and therefore does it add to the customer experience? The other thing is to try and make sure that what you're adding isn't worth a lot more than actually what they originally came along and bought from you, or that because there are economics that you have to sort of live with within running a business, and it's sort of quite easy, if you like, to get carried away. I mean, we've spoken about it before, but the famous Hoover promotion of get a free trip to America when you buy a vacuum cleaner, wasn't very good for the overall business, and frankly, it wasn't really relevant to the relationship between the customer and the manufacturer of vacuum cleaners. So you have to sort of ask yourself when you add value in any kind of business, is what is it actually doing? And if you like, what's the real cost of the adding value versus what's the customer's perceived value? Working in advertising agencies and media specialists and doing sort of market modelling and things like that, there was a lot of pressure on companies to keep on adding services to their remit as far as clients were concerned, but the clients would only actually pay for what your core business was. Everything else was in danger of becoming an additional expense to running the business. So you had to be very careful how you offered services to a client that were over and above what you'd normally expect to do. Now, when you sort of say, well, what is the best added value? Sometimes the best added value is actually just doing what you set out to do in the best possible way, and that you get it absolutely right from work day one, and you don't have to keep on going back and putting things right after the event, is effectively the best customer service experience you can get. But we've already heard Catherine say, well, sometimes building the relationship for you with your customer in a way that is perceived as added value actually is probably more valuable to you in the long term as a business than actually performing the function that you were paid to do in the first place, because it actually creates a long-term relationship rather than something that's purely transitory. So I think you have to ask yourself a series of questions about what you're doing. So are you offering the best possible product and service that is delivering the best experience? If you think it can be improved, then go and ask the 80% of your business that's derived from 20% of your customers, go and ask that 20% some questions about what do you think are my strengths, how I deliver my product, etc., and where do you think I can improve, because that will give you a fairly tangible area to focus on for improvement. You need to work out for yourself what is the real cost of, inverted commas, adding value versus what's the perceived benefit to the customer. And sometimes you actually need to go right back to basics and say, well, actually, if I'm doing too many things, I'm not doing my core business properly. Perhaps I should actually cut down on what I'm offering and do what I'm supposed to do really well and get partners in to do other bits. So, you know, if I am supposed to be the media function, I shouldn't actually be looking at overall strategy in a business term or looking at other areas of communication. I should be focusing on the area of my expertise. So yeah, it gives you some things to think about.
Okay, so Kevin, building on what Jonathan was saying, if you were, say, in the IT industry, which I know is kind of your background and everything, what would you say might a small IT company be able to offer in terms of added value, and how it might actually make that offer to its customers?
Well, I look at it in basics. You know, value to me is the difference in price that is created when you look at the costs creating the goods and service. So, you know, if you think of, say, a restaurant, you know, they buy ingredients, they have workers in a kitchen, the chef prepares something nice, and, you know, there's a good margin on that, and that's where the value in the restaurant business is. So, in terms of IT companies, the IT companies, basically, there are very, very large companies like Dell and HP that have a lot of very, very compelling offers, good pricing, all that sort of thing. But price isn't necessarily the only consideration. So, for example, if you've decided you want something quite specific and you go and try and find it, the HP guys or the Dell guys might not be able to deliver it for you. And in that space is where the nimble IT company can come in with an offer where they can be flexible, they can look at the customer's needs rather than what they think they want, and tell them, yes, you know, we found a way that we can do it for less for you, while, you know, making a good margin for themselves. So a lot of this stuff is know your market. The marketing guys in this podcast endlessly talk about a marketing audit, where you actually survey the market, understand what people are paying for, and understand how you can, in that context, deliver something with a better profit for yourself than the offers that most other people are making.
Yeah, but of course, you know, that we've alluded to Hoover and a few other examples. It's always seen as being something that's easy for the big companies to do, but the small companies, as Catherine's pointed out in her case, you know, they can be nimble on their feet, and it's that being nimble as well as being specific to each individual customer, isn't it, Kevin? That is the advantage that a lot of these smaller companies have.
Nimbleness, flexibility. Quite often, large organizations have a lot of internal bureaucracy around doing things. Smaller companies can take a more entrepreneurial approach, find, let's say, shortcuts through to give the customer what they want in terms of value. Value is the thing that people are paying for. As a stakeholder in a business, I've often been frustrated dealing with my IT department, and the metaphor I've always said for them is that it's a bit like going to a pizza joint, and you just want a pizza, and they're saying, well, there's 5 types of flour here, we can roll this stuff. You go, I just want the thing, and that's very much a thing to focus on. What is it that the customer has actually wanted? That's what they're paying for. How then can you deliver that to them in a cost-effective way that gives you a good margin, that gives you a good profit, that lets your business be sustainable?
But in terms of added value, you could say to them, it's 2 for 1 today. Come on a Tuesday, 2 for 1 every Tuesday, and you've got extra customers coming through the door. So, I was going to go back to what you were saying about restaurants and looking at the value there. The added value in restaurants is great waiting staff. Waiting staff that actually take an interest in the customers, perhaps ask you how you are before you're even ready to place an order. Actually taking an interest in people, and I think this is where small companies can actually have an advantage, because you can deal very personally on a one-to-one basis with people, find out exactly what their needs are, and even in a small company like my own, you can still perhaps have a structure whereby your long-standing regular customers perhaps get a slightly speeded up service. If you know how they work, they know how you work, you can add value to their particular relationship by getting their work done quickly. That's not to say that everybody else gets put on a back burner, but sometimes there can be a prioritising of things as well, which can actually be very straightforward in a small company, because you've got that sort of one-to-one rapport with people.
Yeah, okay, so you're watching the Marketing Gem, which is Link for Growth TV show, and this week we're talking about adding value to your service or your products. Jonathan, if you were an SME and you were thinking about making a kind of some sort of club card scheme or loyalty scheme or whatever scheme you want to add to it, or you want to do something along those lines, would you say that was the best method to do it, or would you say it's more the personal approach that Catherine's been outlining?
It's very much dependent on the type of business. You sort of look at the coffee shop methods. You've got the club card, which cost of offer, which isn't particularly generous, but is a very effective, inverted commas, inducement to getting repeat purchase. But actually, the Cafe Nero, walk in and have your little card stamped, is a very cheap way for them to do it. There's no technical infrastructure. The person who's carrying the card is likely to be, the chances are they'll probably lose one card in every 3 or 4. So really, it's a very low cost, very low tech solution to a problem, and it doesn't cost a great deal to administer. So I think it's really horses for courses. There are some interesting added value deals around. I think Richer Audio or Richer Sounds, who sell TVs and stuff like that, one of their deals is that their guarantee on product they sell is effectively self-funded. So you go in and spend a lot of money on a piece of kit with them, and they say, right, here's a 2-3 year guarantee, whatever it is. This will cost you £100, which they put in to their bottom line. But at the end of the 3 years, if you haven't claimed on it, you actually get that money back. Now, not everyone can do that, but it's an interesting concept, because if you look at the other side of it, the Currys PC World Dixon's type model, there have been times in the last 20 years where that company only actually made profit out of the money of the selling of insurance policies on produce you bought from the company, from the shop. And arguably, you could say, well, selling them an insurance policy isn't a very good endorsement of the quality of the product that they're choosing to sell you. Because by right, you want to go into a shop and you want to expect automatically, like a John Lewis model, that it's guaranteed for 1 to 5 years, etc. I mean, the reality with all of those is that if it goes wrong, ultimately the manufacturer repairs or replaces the product anyway, or is very likely to. So you just have to sort of think of things as original, but actually add something to the service that you're providing, rather than, you know, sort of going the extra mile. Actually can be, I think it was Avis, you know, we try harder, was a very successful marketing strategy. And it didn't actually cost them anything, but the perception of the added value of the personal service, etc., added up to more than just hiring cars out. So there are lots and lots of examples out there, but, you know, from my point of view, make sure what you're doing is relevant and adds to the perceived value that you're delivering. As I said before, get it right first time is the biggest added value in most companies that you can give. And if that means you're doing a service, or you're trying to be more flexible than the big players in your marketplace, then think of it from this point of view. You can go in, listen to the customer's problems, and then tailor-make a package or a service that works for them. Quite often, if you go to a large company, they will have something that they're actually being incentivized to sell off the shelf that may not actually be what you really want. And that's where your flexibility can add value.
Yes, can I just pick up on something that Jonathan said, which was about you know, smaller business doing something and being a bit clever and doing something that's different to the norm. I was just going to mention Reason Coffee Shop in Watford High Street, who, okay, they're a coffee shop and they've got a loyalty card. Great, everybody's doing that. But what they're also doing is being a bookshop. And they're having book swap days, and they have meetings. That's drawing people into the shop. It's about sort of thinking outside of the box sometimes and just shaking it up, doing it a bit differently. And people think, well, you know, I fancy a coffee, but they do books there as well, don't they? You know, so it's yeah, looking at it in a different way.
Yeah, Waterstones have been doing that for a while as well. But yes, you're right.
Yeah, yeah. They don't give books away though, do they, Waterstones?
Unlikely.
So
I think that's called shoplifting.
which we don't endorse.
Absolutely.
Okay, Kevin, I mean, there are several pitfalls, though, aren't there? I mean, we talk about this sort of thing, in that you have to be able to meet any of these added value bits that you do offer. I mean, the classic one was the Hoover, which we've talked about, but you do have to sort of like do proper cost accounting or proper cost estimates of what this thing's going to cost before you enter into it, to make sure you can maintain your cash flow and your profitability, can't you?
Absolutely. And I worked for a company that did various products and various bits of hardware, and this whole area of warranty is really quite interesting. So, you know, people, when they provide a price for a product in a country, implied in that price is that they will give the legal minimum service. So typically what that means is that because remember, in UK law, your contract is with the person that you bought it from, not actually the vendor. And sometimes the place that you bought it is owned by the vendor, but by the manufacturer rather than some sales company. So you've got to return to. So you've basically the warranty that manufacturers offer is you send it back to them at your cost. They will take a week or so to figure out what's wrong with it, and then send you the device back repaired or something equivalent or better. That's basically what should happen when you go wrong. When you pay for a warranty, you're therefore getting an uplift on that service. So, for example, typically the big thing the big bit of the value in that whole cycle is the fact that you get what's called advanced replacement. for example, when you have Apple Care, you have a defective iPhone or whatever, you call up Apple, say there's a fault. They then say, okay, we'll take a charge on your credit card to ensure that you return the device we shipped to you, and then they ship you the part. You then send them the thing back, and they'll pay for the logistics both ways. So those are the real costs in warranties, and so you have to, when you're offered a warranty, you have to decide how much is it costing, how long am I prepared to do without the device, etc., etc., etc. And those things are then fed into the base cost. So, for example, if you ship 1,000 of these things, you know that maybe 30 of them are going to come back. You know that the cost on the shipping is £20. You know that you can replace the device. Let's say that's not actually a cost because it's already factored in the retail price. So they know the main costs are the risk of loss and the shipping journeys. So let's say that's £60, or let's say those costs are £30. Turn that into a margin, multiply by 3, you get to £90. £90 is the cost of the warranty, and that's a very, if it's a cherished device, that's a very, very tempting offer.
Yeah, so of course, if you're, say, a heating engineer or something like that, you can always say that, well, you'll come back and do a service in a year's time, one free service in a year's time or something like that to make sure it's worked out, couldn't you, Jonathan? It's not the case of...
Actually, can I just come back in on the free service thing? That's, in our business, that was a real millstone around our necks. People had software products, but they had been used to buying mechanical things before. So within their businesses, they had this idea that you needed to have preventative maintenance and stuff. So therefore, as part of what the customer was looking for was preventative maintenance visits. When to do a real preventative maintenance visit, we had to send somebody from London to somewhere like Azerbaijan to do that kind of work, and that stuff's very, very costly. And in terms of the sales process, the salespeople have to educate the customer to precisely the value of those kind of things, especially if you're a specialist business sending specialist equipment to people, say, in Eastern Europe and Germany. The actual costs of sending stuff or people out there can be enough to wipe out the entire profit for the company.
Yeah, and I concur with that, but I'd also say that perhaps rather than offering, say, a free service at the end of 12 months or something like that, maybe use things like your web presence, like your website, to provide, inverted commas, up-to-date and added value information to the customer. So sort of take some advantage out of it. So let's say you're a heating engineer and you're fitting people with boilers. Put some information up about ways that they can actually save money by using energy more efficiently. What's the difference between a traditional boiler and the most modern type of boiler on the market? Yes, it costs you X to have it installed, etc. But you're going to have so many years worth of guaranteed performance, and it'll save you X% of your gas heating bill per annum or whatever. Look at the services that naturally add to the job that you're doing, which might actually in time enable you to sell rather than give away an added value service. There are usually sort of logical things that you can do to add to your overall product. But again, I go back to sometimes doing less but doing it better is a better way of giving clients added value. Don't always say, oh, well, I've got to add this, I've got to add this. Certainly in terms of the customer experience in a restaurant, very important. Go out and wine and dine and work hard with improving the customer's experience in the restaurant. That always will pay dividends. But sometimes in other types of business, just think about, logically, what benefit, what's the perceived value of this benefit to the customer.
Okay. Very briefly, Catherine, before we come to tip of the week for this particular subject, the point that Jonathan was making about the communications is quite an important one, isn't it? To make sure that your website is, say, offering some of that free advice, and you can use it as a tool to help you add value to your customers.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. No, that's great added value, and I would say not only through your website, but also through perhaps an e-newsletter. And I don't mean every week, because nobody wants to receive them every week, but perhaps once a quarter or twice yearly or something. As Jonathan was saying, you know, a few bits and pieces of information that are useful to people, not just all about, oh, we're doing this now, do you want this product, do you want this service, but just, you know, little hints and tips that the people appreciate. You know, if you're a safety company, a bit of extra safety around the home. Have you checked your locks recently? Smoke alarms, have you checked that they're working? How to do that? Just little snippets of information. I mean, we do this with a charity that I work with, the Michael Green Foundation. We do an e-newsletter, maybe every 3 or 4 months or something like that, and it's literally just got 2 features on it, a little bit of text underneath, and obviously a link to the website then. So you're offering something to people. It's free. It takes about half an hour to put together, and you're still reaching out to people. So yeah, social media is a great thing to use. I was just going to add one more thing, which was packages as well. My husband runs a company writing CVs for people, domycv.com, and he offers a whole range of packages, so that you're offering packages that are bundled together, which you know, obviously is cheaper than having the items separately. That's another way of adding a bit of added value to things, ranging from CEOs down to students. So there's something in affordable categories for different people as well. So again, it's a sort of draw for different people, different price ranges, and you know, they're getting a little bit extra for their money.
Okay, well, that sounds like your one thing that must be done. What's yours, Jonathan, for when you're thinking about adding value to your product or service?
I think remember what your core product and service is, and make sure that you're spending quality time on delivering that as well as you possibly can, rather than allow added value or perceived added value to distract you from delivering the core product and delivering it as well as you can.
Okay, and Jonathan, what would be your one? Sorry, Kevin, what would be your one tip?
Yeah, Kevin, Jonathan here. My tip is really what I said earlier, the marketing audit. You know, analyze the market you operate in, analyze, you know, try and drill in where people perceive value to be, and then look at the costs of that, so that you can make a very effective product that contains lots of value, that's cost effective to deliver.
Great. Okay, and each week on the Marketing Gem we talk about, I ask the panelists for one tip of the week that's not necessarily connected with the topic we've just done. It could be something that's topical, it could be some particular favourite of theirs that they've often seen that have been overlooked by others. So, Jonathan, should we start with you? What would be your one tip of the week?
Depending on what you're doing, listen to your customer, as they say, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Don't try and sell them what's most convenient and on the top of your list of get rid of this week. Sell them things that they need, and make sure that you manage the customer experience so they go away from it feeling pleased. And that will be your best marketing, you know, full stop.
Okay, Kevin?
My tip of the week is it's coming into winter, so think carefully and plan for businesses being closed down for maybe 2 or 3 days because of heavy snow and ice. So that's my tip. Plan for winter. Make sure that your staff and your people know what they're going to do if there's some sort of snow. I think the Americans call it a snow day.
Okay, and Catherine?
Unfortunately, when you work for yourself in your own home, snow day doesn't matter. My one tip would be to keep your knowledge up to date. There's no good trying to offer ongoing expert advice to customers if your knowledge is stuck in the past. Keep up to date with what's going on. You know, check into, for me, it would be checking into things like Creative Design Week, D's, and you're looking at a whole range of information out there. It's just there at our fingertips. Keep up to date with knowledge, information, gives you something to talk about with customers, keeps everything fresh.
Okay, that's great. My tip of the week is to make sure that you get the pricing right and that you don't overprice or undercharge, because both are equally bad. Okay, you've been watching The Marketing Gem. I hope you've enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week to talk about a new topic, a new subject. And on that point, I will say cheerio.
Cheers. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, everyone. Follow us on @TheMarketingGem on Twitter.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.